Today I'll talk about Xenophone. Okay, good evening everybody. I've got to get used to holding, thank you. I've got to get used to having both hands occupied. I like to wave them around quite a bit. Thank you Paul for inviting us to speak. I did actually speak to Paul last year and he asked me to do one of these meetups, but I didn't think we were ready and I wanted to actually be able to present a product. So I believe we're one of the first real products out there that the general public could start to use. It takes me about 25 to 30 minutes to go through my deck. I'm getting on a bit now, so I can actually accidentally go on a tangent. So if you could hold your questions till the end, it will avoid me losing, coming off the railroad. So, okay, without further ado. So again, my name's Paul Worrall. I'm actually the founder. I started the company with my partner Selina. I've got about, sadly, over 30 years experience in distributed computing, starting in the mid-80s with, if people know their operating systems, I actually started with Microsoft Unix. So often people go, there's no such thing. Actually, that's how old I am. I did start off as an expert with Microsoft Unix. They did have a version of Unix. It was an AT&T Release 5, System 5 Release 3 version. And they threw it away, which was a disaster, in my opinion. But anyway, it doesn't matter. So that's history. In the early 90s, I ended up in Geneva, where I started my first company. I remember being in a meeting like this, where everybody was discussing the potential for commercial activity on what we now call the internet. So again, I'm pre-internet, and I was trying to sell web servers at the time, and nobody knew what I was talking about, so I always tend to be a little bit too early, and I'm hoping this time I'm not. So in 2000, I spent the 90s actually working for various banks doing trading floor systems and things like that, and then in 2000 I tried again. I went to the States in the dot-com boom, tried to raise a bit of money, but came late again, and there was a crash, and they never got follow through on the funding. So I survived another couple of years, and then ended up working for JP Chase as a lead architect, where I stayed until 2014, and I left to start this business then. So we've already been working on this 3 years. Selina had a career in teaching. I was insistent that I didn't start writing software again, speculatively, that we found a use case first for what we wanted to do. So I felt we had a channel to get the product to market. Selina found one with local governments across England and Wales, and in the last 18 months she's been working and developing that, which I'm going to tell you about. We've got a few other people, but I'll go on if I introduce everybody, so I'll just stick with Selina and I. 2 months ago, we hadn't really had any sort of participation from ourselves in the community around blockchain. So 2 months ago was when we started to come out of our cave and let people know about what we're doing. So we've already done, this here is, Stefan Pfeil published this a couple of days ago, which is what he calls the Web 3.0 abstracted stack. So for us, as some people that are working on a product, not involved with the community, it's really great to see that we've at least been appreciated enough to be mentioned on the decentralized applications in that stack. So for us, that means we've started to get on the map and in the consciousness of other people that have been involved in blockchain a lot longer than us. Right, so what are we about? Where did we start? Basically, in 2013, 2014, we actually had forms of identity theft. In fact, it was my daughter who's here somewhere that was the first victim of it. We had a lot of people complaining to us about various forms of cybercrime. And at work, regulation was getting more and more difficult in areas like KYC, know your customer. So we were seeing all this friction that was coming about between organisations and people, as everyone started to double check everything to avoid these kind of issues, okay? So we came up with 3 very important principles that we stick to all of the time. They're profoundly important to us, even though they're very simple. So first of all, people. Whoever we've spoken to that was a victim of some form of identity theft. So there was always somebody else that said, I knew they wouldn't do that. So I felt that, we felt that if we could harness that relationship between other people and come up with a solution that lets people work together, then that would be a really cool thing to do. It seems an obvious statement, but there isn't many products that really allow people to do that in a universal way. The second thing was everybody was talking about hiding information and keeping information secure and secret, but we felt that battle was lost. So rather than focus on securing information, we focused on activities, and that's stopping imposters carrying out an activity based on some information that's out there, right? We all know that information is completely ubiquitous now. The third thing was collaboration, and this was, I thought I had the solution to this. I already had started building a crypto platform to provide a product for this, and but when I approached a lot of large organisations, they were all very reluctant to consider any form of what we call technically a transport, another transport, okay? So we talked about doing things over email and stuff like that, and just absolutely no way. Email was a showstopper for all of those organisations. Selena had been involved in a number of conferences in the financial services sector and spotted this interesting blockchain, and she kept coming back to me saying, have a look at this, and I kind of refused to do it. But a year ago, it was literally March last year, wasn't it? So March last year, I finally had a peep at Ethereum. Within about 2 or 3 weeks, I literally abandoned everything I was doing and I just shifted to Ethereum. There are concepts in Ethereum that I found really uncomfortable doing. I felt I needed a peer-to-peer solution for security, and obviously this is just like a distributed network where everybody knows everything. So I was kind of uncomfortable about that. But what I was impressed with was the engineering thought behind it and the commitment to the community behind it, and the fact that within a month I had a working prototype that replaced what I'd done before. So it's testament to Ethereum as a platform that in that year I haven't really had to worry too much about that part of my product. We've been able to focus with limited resources on just building our solution. So this is what the product is. We're all about assuring that activities are genuine. Just like you're really comfortable sending a picture or a message or any other form of communication to people, we want to have this concept that you can send an activity to people that assures what you're doing is genuine. And we want to enable family, friends and professionals to help in that assurance. And by working together like that, just by having one extra person, what we call acknowledging an activity, it's much more difficult to compromise another person when you're working with other people like that. Not only that though, besides just being less likely to be a victim of fraud, every interaction that we have now, this friction that I mentioned earlier, the idea is to have something that puts a lot more trust in interactions between people and organisations, so it makes all of your activities much easier. These are activities that are obviously important to you, and that's why we call it the Grown App for Grown Up Things. So this is what it looks like. Basically, as soon as you start using the app, you'll see a number of activities. If you're familiar with the concepts of smart contracts in Ethereum, every activity is actually an instance of a smart contract. It's a very small, lightweight contract that we use. Then you've got 3 particular roles. It's a bit difficult to see. Let's see if I can. Yeah, there you go. So there's 3 roles. There's the person that creates an activity. There's an acknowledger. That's someone that's helping ensure that the activity is genuine. And there's a verifier. That's obviously the counterparty that's going to check that they're satisfied that the activity represents a genuine action by the owner. So. Now, the verify in the app, it's there in the app, but obviously we're hoping that corporations are interested in another product that we're developing that is to help them integrate the consuming of these activities through and into their current customer process flows. Okay? So obviously we don't expect people in organisations to be verifying people on a mobile phone. But the product works, it has all of the roles and all of the capabilities in the app itself. There's one extra bit that if anybody has seen the product before, there's one extra bit that I've added. When we first showed people the product about 6 or 7 months ago, the thing that most ordinary people were shocked about was this here. Does anybody recognise what that is? Okay, so no, it's not hash, it's actually the unique address of the contract on the Ethereum network. Both the smart contracts and people are addressed in a similar way. So in our app, we were literally representing people and the contracts by these long numbers, which of course ordinary people just can't compute. However, the reason I did that is these are so important. I felt to put a label or an alias on them to hide those from people was, you know, open to compromising. Someone could change the underlying address, and then you think you're doing one thing and you're actually not. So I was reluctant to do that. But now I've introduced an address bug, which is purely for, at the moment, acknowledgers, so that if you actually take an address from somebody else and you want to use it to represent them as an acknowledger, we actually sign the record. So every time you read the record, it double checks that the signature still applies to the record. If it doesn't, we know it can be compromised, and the app will say, look, there's an issue here, you can't trust this record, okay, before you use it. Right, so the app itself is available now as a beta on Google Play. It's also available for the iOS platform, but we have run into an issue that I have to point Zoe out. Basically, he has reported a bug with an API that we use in the Web3 framework, which is a programming framework that we use, that causes a loop, effectively. So I stood there and I noticed that the Apple phones were locking up and getting very hot. So I thought, there's something going on here. So at the moment, if you've got iOS 10.3 on your Apple device, you can't actually use our product. But we're talking a few weeks and hopefully we'll be over that hurdle. But if you are on Android, you can just search for Zonify, download the product, and use it this evening. Okay? Right, so I think I already said that I was reluctant to start writing a new product. I've been doing it a long time. There's a lot of creative and mental energy that goes into creating software. And I didn't want to do it until I felt the solution that we envisaged had an actual route to market. And this is where Selena came in. She spotted an opportunity with registry services, which, if you don't know, they are the group of people in the public sector that manage things like marriages and deaths and deed poll, name changes and things like that. So over 18 months, Selena has got us into a position where we started training registrars in the registry offices to use our product and teaching them about what blockchain was about. And I think we're probably the first people to actually go and start to train completely non-technical people who absolutely hate IT anyway, about blockchain, what it is, and about cryptography. And we had a lot of dice throwing and things like that to try and help them understand what these concepts were. But where we have now got to is we have agreements with a number of local authorities that are prepared to start using the product. Am I going on a bit? Am I a bit slow? Sorry. So they want to start using the product so that they can perform this acknowledging role for customers when they want to represent a life event with an activity. The first use case that we have is when someone wants to change their name after marriage. That's becoming quite an onerous process in the UK because everybody's double checking everything. So the idea is you can create an activity that's a newlywed name change activity, and just after the ceremony they will literally acknowledge that activity, and then you can send it to many service providers who are then able to confidently use that as a proof of some name change and marriage process. All right. So we can confidently say now we're representing a number of local governments that are interested in consuming or using and offering a blockchain type product. We're very keen now. Our main focus is reaching back out to a number of organisations, and if anybody's representing or works for an organisation here that has deals with customers and has a customer processing capability, and we're reaching out to them, seeing if they're interested in blockchain, if they would like to get together with some of these local authorities and start to trial the use of our product. Okay. Also, of course, it's really important that if we get a lot of service providers interested in consuming the activity, then they're going to need resources. So we're starting to put together a training program for developers, so we can make sure they're familiar with our product, the ideas behind it, how it's used with registry services, and how they can consume these events, okay? So the 30 million there is an important number because in the business case that we work with them for, it's going to generate a figure around that size across England and Wales for additional services in the public sector. And under austerity, they're very keen on finding alternative revenue sources. All right, so let's have a look at how else it can be used. But before I do that, let's try and have a look at what the model is behind how the product's used. So you've got an activator. The activator creates an activity. Technically, I think someone's already asked me about the smart contract here. So we actually create a smart contract for every activity. And then, of course, because that's on the blockchain, the address of that activity can be shared by a verifier. Because it's a smart contract, then, of course, implicitly in the way in which this technology works, you know that only the certain people can actually interact with it. It is actually public data. Of course, someone could actually see that on the blockchain, but there's a degree of pseudo-anonymity. We don't store anything in it. We just use it for state and for proof. Okay, zero-knowledge proof is the kind of the scientific term people call it. The other roles are the acknowledgers. There's two types of acknowledgers. Most applications of the product don't have to, can just be what we call mutual, which is where the activator shares the addresses of the people they want to acknowledge the activity with the verifier and asks them to always make sure that for certain activities, these other acknowledgers have acknowledged it. The registry services that we're doing now, they're an example of authoritative acknowledgers. That's where the verifier requires an authoritative address that they can check so they know it's who they expect it to be. I keep saying that Zonafied, it doesn't do identity. And I hold by that. So it's a topic that's worth an hour conversation, so I won't go into it. We don't do identity. Identity actually comes from other people that are confirming these addresses are representing people and activities that someone else wants to verify, okay? It is the case, though, that with the registry service relationship, we will be actually creating what we call an authoritative acknowledger oracle. So there's a small population of registrars actually across the UK of people. There's only really about 2,000 of them. So we believe that a stepping stone into good identity are small, focused, domain-specific groups of people that verify who they are and what they're doing. So we'll be creating an authoritative acknowledger oracle for people wanting to verify the registry services, and we'll be doing that for them. Okay, so let's just go through, conscious I might be going over my time, let's just go through these other example activities. So we start off with, the number one thing is people working together. Okay, so that is people that want to have someone else acknowledge that what is happening is legitimate, right? So reassuring customers on the left there, the very first step for an organisation is just reassuring a customer that they're prepared to accept one of these activities. And being able to just check that the acknowledgers are who they expect to be. That's the first step. But the second step actually is, I think we're all aware of the scams where someone's calling you up pretending to represent an organisation, and there's a lot of people that then get fooled into partying with money of some sort. Okay. So another way that we believe the activities can be used is the other way around, where the activity is shared with the client when there's going to be an interaction with the client, and then the actual customer becomes a verifier, and they can check that the person representing the organisation is generally representing them, and that what they're asking to do is generally what they've received as some form of instruction. Okay, that's kind of a long haul. It'll take a long time possibly for organisations to want to do that, but we certainly think the first step, particularly with the registry services, is possible, and that's for organisations just to be able to look at these activities for those record changes that are important around life events. Another example of its use, which can be resolved now with the product, is when, in conveyancing, when a solicitor is party to a property purchase, there's been a lot of scams in the last few months. In fact, it's the fastest growing scam. Cybercrime is intercepting payment instructions between solicitors and house buyers or house sellers, and then they're making the payments into the wrong account. And what's important about this is nobody's taking responsibility for it, so whoever has lost the money, they've lost the money. End of story. But if a solicitor downloads our product now, encourages the client to use the product, they can share an activity with them and say, don't actually make the payment until this activity goes live, and also check that the instruction that we've given you matches what the activity is for. And that's how you can use the product. It's really simple and straightforward. They can do that now. So if anybody's involved in the legal profession, house conveyancing, please have a chat with us because we think there's some opportunity there. I won't go through the other two. One is briefly vulnerable people, and the other one is just sometimes it's ourselves. I've had friends that like to gamble a little bit and had a bit of a drink and then realise they've gone way over their limit. Okay, so there's an opportunity here to actually present an activity and say, look, if I'm going to change my limit and start to gamble more than I plan to do, please make sure that my partner or my friend have acknowledged that they think I'm in the right mind to go and do that.